we look at an Enphase system today versus what we may have designed 5 years ago, usually what we're talking about now is a system that includes not just microinverters, but microinverters, some sort of grid forming ability, and in many cases, some sort of storage as well, maybe even a generator mixed in.
California, I think, is a good laboratory for that, where they've been changing some of the tariffs so that the most expensive energy now is between 4 to 9 p.m. Right, and in fact, the state has over-generation of solar during the day, and so if you've heard of NEM 3.0, I'm sure people have talked to you about that already today. But we're releasing shortly what we call IQ8 HC, IQ8 AC, and IQ8 MC.
Hi everyone, Joe Ordia here for Solar Surge, and today we're coming back to you from Fremont, California. We're here at Enphase headquarters, and this afternoon I'm joined by Ali Hussein, Director of Product Management, and we're going to be talking about the Enphase IQ line of microinverters. So Ali, welcome to the channel, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about Enphase's products.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we're excited also because I think, in terms of solar equipment manufacturers, I don't think there's any one manufacturer or any one system that's specifically requested by name, at least among our clients, than the Enphase IQ system. And so in this video, I'm really looking forward to learn more about the Enphase IQ line, and particularly talking about the differences between the different models in the line, because I know there's many different models. And then also I'd like to just get into how to best pair the microinverter with the solar panel that you're going to be installing. We're talking about residential for homeowners, because that's another question. I think there's a lot of conflicting information out there as what's the best microinverter or what's the proper microinverter to pair with a particular size solar panel. So yeah, looking forward to getting into that. I guess before we start about some of the specific products here, could you give us a little bit of a recap of where did the IQ line start? Because I know back in the day we used to have the M series, then there was the S series, and then the IQ line. Can you kind of walk us through when that started to where we are now with the IQ8?
Sure. Our first IQ microinverter was the IQ6, right? And that was actually our first microinverter that was a plastic encased housing rather than the other ones that had a metal encased housing. Also, we called it IQ because that's where we really stepped up the intelligence of the microinverter to be able to get high efficiency and seamless, very clean grid interactivity. So that's grid interactivity means that it follows the grid. When we say grid agnostic, that's where we will form a grid if the grid is not there, but we're always happy to follow an existing grid. After IQ6, we went to IQ7, where we upgraded our ASIC, and our ASIC is basically a semiconductor device that we design, and inside the ASIC we put some of our special sauce, right? Algorithm-wise, also some of the way that we do our sensing in order to be able to control the microinverter to the best and most efficient point. So IQ7 has been our workhorse for a number of years, and I think we've got something like 10, 12 million out there in the field, right? And over the years, we've improved it. The firmware in it has improved. Has become more reliable as we've developed it. But what we wanted to do from IQ7 was go to the next level with IQ8. And so IQ8 has yet a new ASIC done in the latest generation of semiconductor technology in order to have extremely fast calculations and very fast response from IQ8. And the reason for that is the big feature in IQ8, which is its grid forming ability. So now it's grid agnostic, where that means that it is able to form a grid if the grid is not there, and it doesn't require batteries. So we're the first microinverter to be able to do that. And the key to that is our ASIC. So it's very fast, very flexible, and that allows us to have seamless transitions. So when the grid goes away, the microinverters pick it right up. And if we're doing it right, you don't even notice that the grid is gone, except that maybe your neighbor's lights are out.
Yeah, well, I know you're right. When we first started covering the IQ8 line, and I think it all kind of happened at the same time, but the IQ8 was the first microinverter, right, to have sort of a grid-forming sunlight backup type capability, but then also was the first generation microinverter to kind of come out alongside the ensemble storage solution as well. So when we look at an Enphase system today versus what we may have designed 5 years ago, usually what we're talking about now is a system that includes not just microinverters, but microinverters, some sort of grid forming ability, and in many cases, some sort of storage as well, maybe even a generator mixed in. In light of what the new electrified home looks like. All right, I hope you're getting some great value from today's video content. If you're a solar sales professional out there, or maybe you're considering starting a career in solar sales, coming in from another industry, then I'd like to invite you to Solar Surge University. Solar Surge University is the premier online training program for aspiring solar sales professionals who really want to be professionals. Learn how to sell solar at an expert level with a consultative approach. It's the same approach that I use and that we use here at Solar Surge to do over $700,000 a month in solar sales virtually with no advertising budget. So if you'd like to separate yourself from the pack of undereducated, underperforming solar salespeople, check out Solar Surge University, where you can learn all of our expert techniques and for a limited time, have access to my live sales call recordings with some of my live clients. So again, we invite you to check out Solar Surge University. The link will be below here. And we're also offering a 14-day, no-risk money-back guarantee. So I had a chance to speak with your co-founder, Raghu, earlier. And hearing his vision for what the future electrified home looked like. It's a home that includes not just solar, but solar, storage, interfacing with the electric vehicle charger, maybe other power sources. So when you look at that sort of a future going towards that, how does the IQ8 help us get there? And what does the Enphase IQ system look like if we were to deploy it at its fullest today?
Well, the microinverter is the basis of the whole thing because solar is the key technology that kind of enables the energy independence, right? At the end of the day, you could add a battery, but to generate power yourself, you need solar. And, the microinverter gives you that right under the panel, and it gives you a more resilient supply because it doesn't have a single point of failure, right? It's because there's one on every solar module. If one goes out, you still have the majority of your generation. While if you have a central inverter, that one, if that's a central point of failure. But the other thing is that it's really about the system and the communication between the system, the intelligence in the system. So when I think about the future, I think about how do I optimize my interaction with the grid. So that means using as much of my power as possible, if that's what I want, or minimizing my costs, if that's what I want, or maximizing my resiliency. So I'm always ready in case the grid goes out. I have as much power as possible in backup. So we have different settings within our app that allow you to configure a system to be in the state that's reflects your values and the reason that you bought the system and why you want it to work for you. So to me, the future is that kind of customizability, but then also a seamless system working in the background where we bring our intelligence to do things like maybe if you have an electric heat pump, you could pre-cool your house when you're getting a lot of excess solar. So you use your own energy, you pre-cool your house, then in the evening when it's still hot but you're not generating as much energy, you don't have to do as much cooling because your house has been pre-cooled, for example. Or to store some hot water, right? So you heat your water, if you have an electric water heater, and then later on you can use that hot water even if it would have cost a lot of money to heat it up, in the evening or at a different time of day. California, I think, is a good laboratory for that, where they've been changing some of the tariffs so that the most expensive energy now is between 4 to 9 p.m. Right, and in fact, the state has over-generation of solar during the day, and so if you've heard of NEM 3.0, I'm sure people have talked to you about that already today. It really incentivizes you to make use of whatever solar you can generate during the day, whether you're storing it in your home battery, your automobile, your the coolness of your house, or the heat of your water, for example. And maybe in the future we'll figure out new ways to optimize your use of your personal generation. But at the base of it, right, is a microinverter that brings that energy into your home in the first place.
Right, right. And I think we probably ought to talk a little bit more about that because, I mean, we're sitting here today. It's June 2023. We're in California. We are now in NEM 3.0, which means that if you're a homeowner, if you haven't already gone solar, you're not going to get the same payback on solar that you used to get. Because, you know, the way it used to be before is you'd put in enough solar that you would overproduce enough during daylight hours, and you'd basically send all this extra electricity back to PG&E or whoever the utility is in your area. You'd send it back to them during daylight hours so that you have enough credits that whatever you're going to pull in during the evening, as long as you've sent that amount back during the day, you can pull that amount in during the evening and you're going to get a 1-for-1 credit. Well, that's how it used to be. Now, you're not going to get full credit. You know, now when you send electricity back to the power company, you get the wholesale price, basically, just like you're a power plant. When a power plant is selling electricity to the grid, they get the wholesale price, but then when the utility sells it to homeowners, they charge them a much higher retail price. And now you're seeing the same thing with home solar. So it puts people in a position where they want to like self-consume as much of their solar as possible. And then whatever they can't self-consume, they want to store it in a battery so they can consume it later, so they don't have to do this discounted sellback. I know some solar installers I've spoke to here in California are mandating if you're going to do solar now, you have to have a battery. It's no longer optional because in order for the homeowner to get the kind of payback or ROI that oftentimes is sold to them at the point of sale, they have to have their own battery storage so that they can self-consume whatever they would have extra produced during the daytime, put it in the battery so they can pull off the battery at nighttime, so that they're basically using the grid or using the utility as a last resort only.
Yeah, that's correct. So, like I said, you want to consume as much as you can, but I think there's also some interesting things in NEM 3.0. I would recommend we have some training webinars that are very interesting that show the time of use, or not time of use, I guess it's the hour by hour tariff that is NEM 3.0 2023, and I think they'll change it every year. I'm not sure about that, but there are certain hours in certain months where you can get $2 per kilowatt hour, right, going back to the grid, because those are months where it's very hard to ramp up enough generation in the evening time when people are coming home, turning on loads, you know, doing laundry or just coming home and turning on the lights, right? That the amount of energy demanded by California goes up, but the amount that's being generated is going down because the sun is, you know, gradually setting. And so those are situations where California's already recognized that they need to incentivize people to store that energy and sell it back to the grid. So, you know, there are certain small windows, but significant ones where you can actually make some significant money over the consumption tariff, right, by exporting back to the grid. So I think that's really interesting, and you know that's where the flexibility and the intelligence of the system comes into play. You know, having that pre-programmed in the background. So if you say I want to maximize or minimize my costs, then it will take care of that for you.
So when we talk about the IQ system, then we're really talking about more than just the microinverters. We're talking also about the software that controls all of this so that, for example, you can tell the system, hey, maximize my dollar savings by using the battery when it's most profitable, maybe to self-consume or maybe other times to sell back if you're going to get these huge, was it over $2 a kilowatt hour during certain times?
There are just like a couple blocks during the year that there's a very high sell tariff. But, you know, I mean, the microinverters are still the basis. So, you know, I've got here an IQ8 X BAT and an IQ8A. So, you know, they look the same from the outside, but they're different on the inside. But, you know, the microinverter technology underpins many of our products. The most prominent besides the microinverter is the battery, right? But any place that will have DC to AC or AC to DC conversion, whether you're talking about maybe charging a car or pulling energy from your car, as well as maybe if you have a generator, you might put an inverter in front of it to give it a more clean output. You know, our microinverters could be that solution, right? And so, you know, that technology underpins it, and the energy that we spend on making the microinverter efficient, reliable, it goes through all of our products. So, yeah, the microinverter provides that is kind of your brawn, and then the other part is the brains, right? So that's the intelligence that you just mentioned, where we take all those, pieces of power together and do it in the smartest way for the customer.
Great, great. Well, so let's switch gears a little bit, because another question that we often receive, and that I'd really like to better understand, is there's many different models of the microinverters. You say we've got the H here, we've got the A, which are considered kind of two of the higher end of the spectrum in terms of power output. But we also have the IQ8, the 8 Plus, and the 8M. And so one question that often comes up is, let's say right now in the residential space, right, the 400-watt solar panel is kind of the standard size, right? Maybe 370, 380, some installers, but most installers are using a 400. Let's just pick a popular model, Q-Cell 400, very popular model that's on the market right now for residential systems. Homeowner might look at that, especially, a more technically inclined homeowner who might be watching this video now, right? Because they want to better understand how these things work. They might look at it and say, well, if it's a 400-watt solar panel, then I need to have an IQ8A or an 8H. I need to have that microinverter, otherwise I'm losing power. Whereas in many cases, when we see real-world deployments, we're actually seeing deployments with IQ8 Plus or IQ8M with that 400-watt panel. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the trade-offs that we need to consider when we're pairing a solar panel with a microinverter, and how to choose the best, and maybe I shouldn't even ask it that way, choose the best, but how to choose the proper solar panel microinverter pairing based on whether the goal is maximum dollar for dollar savings versus I just want the most power and I don't care what the price is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there is a payback period, and, you want to get solar so that at the end of the day, you maybe save money, especially if that's your goal, but cost is always a factor. And so, we make different power levels. I mean, they look the same and they connect the same. They, the installer will, see them as the same, except for the number that you can put maybe on a breaker. But the point is that what we're trying to do is give you the chance to optimize it for your purposes. So what are some of the factors that you want to take into account to optimize, right? One of the biggest ones is actually latitude. So if you live farther north, then you're going to have much more variation in the day and the amount of light hitting your solar panels over the course of the year. And so in those cases, people will actually do what we call a higher DC to AC ratio. So when I say DC to AC ratio, it's the, let's say, nameplate power of the module divided by the nameplate power of the microinverter. So in a higher latitude, where much of the year you're actually not going to be hitting that nameplate value of the module, you may not want to spend so much money on your microinverter because you won't be using, if you use a microinverter, let's say with the same power level as your solar panel, then for most of the year you won't be using the majority of the power level of your microinverter, right? Maybe very small segments of the year that it actually hits that power level. Another thing to take into account is the degradation of the solar panel. So it is known that they degrade over the years. I think the best ones now, after 30 years, still are probably like, 85, 88% of power. But over time, you're going to be using less and less of the capability of your microinverter. So that's another consideration to take into account. I think, solar panels now are getting better with their degradation. So, that will push the DC to AC ratio closer to 1. But in the past, when, in the first year, you might lose 2 to 5% of your power generation, do you want to buy, are you going to buy a 25-year microinverter for year 1 or for as many years as possible? So that, it allows you to optimize your system from a cost point of view. There are other considerations too, right? So let's say instead of having a south-facing array, you have an east-west array. And so in the morning, the east side is getting a lot of sun, and the west side is not getting a lot of sun. So maybe you want to have a close to 1-to-1 DC to AC ratio so that all day long you have a high level of generation coming from, whether the sun's in the east or the sun's in the west. So those are just some of the considerations. That's only from the AC side. Now, you also need to think about pairing with the solar module that you're using on your roof. You do want to pair based on power, but you also need to look at the DC characteristics. So, for example, in the past, we used to see many 96 cell modules, and we had a model. We have a model, IQ7X, that was designed specifically to meet the DC electrical specs of those modules. Nowadays, the vast majority fit within, that had an 80 volt DC voltage input limit, but now the vast majority fit within the 60 volt input limit. So that IQ8, all of the released ones right now, have a 60 volt upper limit. We are developing an IQ8X that will take us to an 80 volt again. Then the other thing to consider is the current of the module. So depending on the module technology, or the solar wafer technology that they use, and this is something that's been changing over time. They've been changing the actual size of the solar wafers that they use, and those are the ones that get tiled together to make your module, right, your solar module. So as the industry has evolved, we've seen the currents going up from something like 7, 8, 9 amps, then to 14 amps, and now approaching 18 amps as the maximum power current of the module, and you'll see that on their data sheet. So IQ8 has been 12 amps, but we're releasing shortly what we call IQ8HC, IQ8AC, and IQ8MC that are 14 amp capable. So that's designed to capture that extra power that gets clipped out if you don't have an input current limit that's high enough. So those are just some of the considerations. I think those are all the major ones. They're always second and third order, but if you really want to number it out, there are a number of software programs out there that will simulate your solar year and with a particular microinverter, so you can understand where your losses are coming from, and then you can decide what kind of trade-offs, and it'll tell you, maybe using 3% from power clipping and 1% from current clipping. And there's a lot of other things that also come into play, like even just heating up of the solar module reduces your efficiency. So that'll all fall out of that simulation. So it's, the answer, I'm sorry, is it's complicated, but I think that the simulation tools help you a lot, and you can just do a straight simulation between, let's say 3 different microinverter models, and say, okay, this is the one that I want based on, I'd like to not lose more than 5% of power over the lifetime, and the cost trade-off is good enough, right? So, for example.
Yep, absolutely. And you're right, because you made a good point there about the thermal characteristics of the solar panel themselves. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll get a question. Let's say a homeowner in Florida says, hey, I'm in Florida, I have sunlight all day long. Or I'm in Las Vegas, I have sunlight all day long. Why are you pairing a 400-watt solar panel with a 325-watt microinverter? Well, it's because you're in Florida or Las Vegas or Phoenix and you're in sunlight all day long, the temperatures on your roof are over 130, 140 degrees. Your 400-watt solar panel is not operating at 400 watts. It's operating at closer to 300 watts. Mm-hmm. And so that if we actually look at the real-world performance, once the thermal losses are taken into account, you're right, you actually do see pretty much hitting right on with where that is. So, but you mentioned there is going to be a new model, the IQ8X, mm-hmm. right? Now, there's a new model of solar panel, one that we actually reviewed very highly, which is the REC Alpha Pure R, 420, 430 watt panel. Mm-hmm. It does have a slightly higher operating voltage, where it could potentially exceed that 60 volt limit under certain thermal conditions, right? We're talking about cold now, not hot. Right. Was that designed specifically for these type of modules in mind to kind of get us back to that?
It is designed for those modules, and we have IQ7X, and we actually, because the 96 cell modules had disappeared from the market for the most part, we were ready to discontinue that model because there was no modules to pair with it, right? The module landscape is very important to us, right? And we meet with those manufacturers regularly to understand what their roadmap looks like. The trick is that for them, they could remix their module, trade off a little current and voltage in 6 months. But for us to do a proper, high reliability, well-designed micro could take more than a year or two, right? And so, that was one where we decided to pull back on end-of-lifing IQ7X so that we had something to pair with it. But it is underpowered, and so we're releasing an IQ8X that will be of a higher power level, more with a better DC to AC ratio for that particular module. And we expect that it's possible that other module manufacturers will also be releasing similar, let's say modules with similar DC characteristics that we'll want to pair with. That'll be designed for the residential market.
Great. Well, Ali, I guess one question that comes to mind, solar, and I was talking to a number of other folks earlier today about this, but solar is sort of becoming one of those things where it's going to become one of those things that everybody has it, just like we all have computers and cell phones today. And similar to computers and cell phones, it's my opinion that people are going to just kind of refresh their solar from time to time, just like you upgrade your home air conditioner or you upgrade your personal computer after several years. I kind of think we're going to the same way in solar, where it's like every house is going to have it, and either you have an older system or a newer system, but you're going to have it. What do you think the next generation microinverter looks like? Is there an IQ9 currently in development, or what might we see in the next generation of microinverters?
Well, I think our CEO Budri has hinted at some of this in some of our investor and public-facing comments, but we do have an IQ9 in development. We're taking a change in technology there. So there's a new power electronic material called gallium nitride. And gallium nitride has been coming on for some time now. The place you'll most commonly find it is in AC adapters for like a PC or something, where they're shrinking the size of it. So what it allows is for us to shrink the size of the micro and continue to keep high efficiency. One of the big challenges of shrinking it is getting the heat out, right? So any inefficiency becomes heat inside the micro and then heats it up. And of course, you heat something up too much, it'll damage it, right? So gallium nitride gives us a roadmap to continue to innovate on our microinverters from a performance. Usually you have 3 things and you get to pick 2, right? So performance, efficiency, and size. And so what we'll try to do is trade off between those in our next generations. Also, we're trying to track on the changes in the solar modules. And so as those go to higher power, then gallium nitride offers us the opportunity to do, this size of module, but with higher power. So that's some of the innovation that we're looking at in the near future. Of course, we're always looking at what other technologies are coming on in the future. I don't know what it's going to hold, but let me tell you my dream. My dream is to have a microinverter that's thin as an iPad. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, but I don't know if you can do it with these connectors. So the AC connector would probably always be a challenge.
Cool. Well, I mean, miniaturization, that does seem to be the trend. It's cool. He says gallium nitride.
It's called gallium nitride, or you'll see it written as G, capital G, lowercase a, capital N, the elemental values. What it has is that silicon has been the workhorse for power electronics. Power electronics is a great technology that is, underpins all of renewable energy, underpins the electric vehicle, underpins LED lighting. So many of the efficiency and energy innovations that have happened in the last 20 to 30 years are foundationally from power electronics. And silicon has kind of run out of steam. And the next generation of materials is gallium nitride, and there's another one called silicon carbide. Silicon carbide is used for a little bit higher voltage. Gallium nitride is the right one for this application. And so we want to be on the cutting edge to bring the best value, the best products to our customers, and we think that gallium nitride takes us there and gives us a roadmap for further generations of innovation.
Great. Well, folks, again, that's why we're here at Enphase. I know many of you would like to be able to come here and ask questions directly, but that's why I'm here. That's why Solar Surge is here, to kind of be your hands and feet and to kind of let you know what's coming. So we've got a new model, a new high-capacity model, the IQ8X microinverter, to handle some of these higher capacity or higher voltage solar panels that are now coming back on the market, as well as an IQ9 line that should be I guess coming out in the near future here with new materials technology and some, I guess, some more miniaturization built into the design. So, Ali, is there anything else that the audience should know about the current IQ8 line, how to best select what's available of the current line, or what might be coming in the future?
Well, we are developing an IQ8 480 watt module or microinverter. That one's really designed for some other countries where you see much higher panels going into residential. Places like Brazil and Mexico, they tend, because they have different construction, different types of buildings, they can use larger panels. And so we're moving into those types of markets. My main concern is IQ8 and I'm really looking forward to its release probably in probably second half of next year, maybe first half of 2025.
Great. Well, we'll be eagerly awaiting that. And of course, folks, this, as you know, Enphase and the IQ line is a line that we're going to be covering and will continue to cover because there's so much interest there. And I think really you all have a very well-deserved reputation of sort of being at the cutting edge of inverter technology, now battery technology and EV technology, as we'll talk more about in some other videos. But again, folks, this has been Ali Hussein, Senior Director of Project or Product Management here at Enphase, and this has been a presentation of the Enphase IQ line of microinverters. Folks, as always, if you're getting good value from the videos that we have here on Solar Surge, make sure you give us a thumbs up, and also go ahead and share this video with whoever else you think might benefit from the information that we've been discussing here. Of course, as always, if you're in the process of looking at different solar, storage, EV charger options for your home, as always, you can feel free to reach out to us on the link below there, set up a call with one of our experts, and we'd be happy to talk through some options and provide some information for you. Well, folks, that pretty much does it for today's video. As always, I'm Joe Ordia here, encouraging you to get prepared and be empowered. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.